Hey guys, welcome back, and once again this is Java Video Tutorials Lesson 9. Lesson 9 is on loops, and there are 4 kinds of loops, and we are going to try to cover them all. So let's go ahead and open up Dr. Java, and we're just going to create a little file here, call it public class loops, and do public static void main string. Okay, and the loop. Well, loops are very useful, of course. Simple to do. The easiest loop is called a while loop, and basically we're just saying while something is true, then we're going to run this bit of code. So, very simple keyword, while, and there's an ant on my screen. And here we go. We just need some condition like the if test. We'll come back to that. So, some kind of condition. Well, let's create a variable. Let's call it int x. We'll call it x. X equals 0. And we're just going to say while x is less than 10. X is less than 10. So yes, that'll be true. And we're just going to run some code. System.out.println x. So this is a very, very, very simple example. And what do you think is going to happen here? Let's go ahead and compile this. And I'm going to go up to this here, lesson 8. And it's going to be loops.java. And you have to tell me what you think is going to happen, because this is very scary code. So go ahead and stop it. If you don't know, then just watch here. Java loops. Okay, so you see here it's looping and it's just printing out 0 over and over and over. So I want to go ahead and reset the interactions to stop the infinite loop, because nothing is stopping the loop. It just keeps going and going and going, and it never stops. So the way a loop works is you say while, and then it tests this condition. And if this condition is true, it will run through this code block. Once it's done, once it gets to this brace here, it goes back up to the while, and it tests this exact same condition again. And if it's true, it will run through the code block. And then once it gets down here, it goes back up, tests this condition again, and so on and so forth. Well, as you noticed, this condition never changes. X is always equal to 0. X will always be less than 10. So we need to make this change somehow, because we don't want infinite loops in our programs. Those are very scary at times. So let's say x equals x plus 1. So this will increment x. Every time we run through, we're going to print out x, and then we're going to give it the value of x plus 1. So it's going to go through and be 0, and then it'll be 1, and then it'll be 2. So let's compile that. Go ahead and run that. Oops. Java loops. Okay, and you see there, it went through this loop and it just printed out all 9 times the value of x. So it starts out at 0, and once x equals 10, this condition is going to be false, because 10 is less than 10. Oops, not what I meant to do. 10 is less than 10, of course, returns false. So once it gets to false, then it'll just skip over this and proceed on with the program. And so I could have said something like system.out.println line, say we're done. So if I do this, it's going to print out that whole loop, and it's going to say we're done at the very end. So this is a while loop, very simple, and there's one slight variation to a while loop if you want to use it. I hardly ever use it, but I will show you that it exists, and it's called the do while loop. So I'm going to cut this out, do a Control X on it, and I'm going to change it to just do. Then after the code block, I'm going to print out or type while x is less than 10 and follow that by a semicolon. So this is kind of just plain English here. Do this block of code while x is less than 10. The only difference between this block of code and then having just the while is that the do is going to make the block run first and then test the condition at the end. So x equals 0, it's going to print out 0, then do x plus 1, then it'll check the condition. Well, is 1 less than 10? Yes, so it goes back over here and does do. The thing is, once we get to 10, x equals 10, it's going to print out 10 and then increment to 11, and then x is going to be less than, you'll see what's going to happen here. Let's click compile here, and mine fart, sorry, it goes up to 9, but it really does do this first. So one thing I can prove that with is just say while false, and let's just say print out, the condition is false. And so what's going to happen is it's going to do this. It's going to print out the condition is false while false. So really nothing should happen except this is run first before the condition is checked. So let's compile that, and you'll see that it actually does print out the condition is false. Whereas if we were to switch and then do this, okay, so the compiler has some special logic in here that says you can't have a while false. So let's say, x equals 1. That'll be false. So Java loops, and it just says we're done without even printing this out. So that's a while loop and a do while loop. The next type of loop are it's very similar to a while loop, except they're sort of streamlined for certain uses, and it's called a for loop. And so let's go ahead and create an array. We learned this in the last lesson, so I'm going to say int array x equals, and we'll just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0 for good measure, and we will do this, and now we need a for loop. So the keyword here is for, and we're going to have 3 different parts of this for loop. So I'm going to go ahead and separate them with semicolons. And the first part of a for loop says that you have to define some kind of variable. Or really, you don't have to, but really the first part of the for loop strictly says something that happens before the loop even starts. And 99.9% of the time, you're going to define some kind of counter variable. And I usually call it I, int I equals 0. So I define this variable, and now the second part of the loop is your condition, and it's the same thing that goes in a while loop. It's when is this loop going to end? So I'm going to say while I, which is my counter, is less than x, which is the array up here, the integer array, dot length. X.length is going to tell me how big this array is, how many elements there are. So if there's 10 elements, x.length will evaluate to 10. So this is just saying while I is less than 10. And then here it's going to, this is where you can put anything that happens after each iteration of the array. And again, 99.9% of the time, you will see it to be something like I++. Basically, this just says take I and increment it by 1. It's the same as I plus equals 1, or it's the same as I equals I plus 1. So in the loop, let's just say system.out.println x of I. Let's look at this for a second. X of I, x of I. I is going to be changing. It starts at 0, and every time we run through the loop, it's going to go up by 1. So the first time it's going to be 0, and x of 0 is going to give me this 1. Then x of 1 for the second time is going to give me this 2. So let's go ahead and compile this and go ahead and run it, and you see what it did there. It printed out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. It printed out all the elements of this array. So let's change this up a little bit, say I++, and you know, you can really do some funky things with for loops. You don't really need this condition. If you don't want to initialize a counter variable, that's just fine. You know, I could have said int I equals 0 up here, and then I++ happens right here. So this will work just the same way. I don't know why you would do this. It would be kind of ridiculous to not use this first parameter, and it would be confusing to the person who's reading your code. Another thing you can do is you can just simulate a while loop. You know, you can go like, you can do this. This is the exact same thing as saying while I is less than x dot length. So, because I'm not using a first parameter, I'm not using a third parameter. So let's compile that and run it, and it does the exact same thing. And if you're just really feeling lazy and you want to create an infinite loop and you don't want to use while true because that's more characters, you can just say for, and then this syntax basically is same as while true. Not recommended because it's a little confusing to some people to read, but hey, I think it's awesome. For loops kind of dynamic, but just remember the first thing you're going to do is initialize your counter variable. Second thing you're going to do is tell when the loop is going to end, or give it a condition to end when that condition is false. And the third thing is what it's going to do after every iteration, which is usually going to be just incrementing your counter variable. So let's go on to the fourth and final type of loop in Java. And this is kind of a new thing in Java, not that new, but new to some people, and it's the for each loop, or otherwise known as the enhanced for loop. And basically it's just a shorthand to iterate over an array. So I can say for int I, use a colon, and then give it the name of an array. So this x here represents this array, and where I say int I here, this variable is going to be assigned the value of my respective position in x. So if I were just say I, print out I don't even need this here. So it's going to print out the I for every element in x. I is going to be assigned to each value in turn. So let's compile that. And what did I say here? I is already defined. Let me get rid of this here. So compile and interactions, and you see it does the exact same thing once again. This is probably the preferred syntax for going over an array, and it's very easy, very quick and dirty. Not really dirty, it's kind of clean, and then that's about it. So all I got to do now is say that we are done, and come back next time and we will get into, I'll probably give you guys a lesson on objects and pointers. So come back, I'll see you guys here, and have fun watching this lesson 10 times, because that's what it's going to take. Unless you're just super genius like I wasn't.